SD Lab Energy. This is really looking at what we are wanting to include into a program that we're doing with Energize, which is a Master of Technology in Sustainable Energy Engineering. And this includes a number of members. From Ethiopia, we have Jimma University. From Tanzania, we have Dar es Salaam Institute of Technology. From Kenya, we have Technical University Mombasa and Technical University of Kenya. And the lead university is from Politecnico di Milano, Italy. And as you can see in the small writing down there, it's like applying design thinking in sustainable energy engineering. Yes, I've used the buzzword design thinking, and why I've done this is because design means many different things to different people. But design thinking has a particular approach and a particular philosophy, which is what I'm seeing would be very useful to be including in sustainable energy engineering. Design thinking as what it does is not very different from a lot of challenges we've had in social sciences, in developing countries, in how can we be more empathetic to the circumstances of those we are wanting to make a change. We've received models and ideas and concepts from multilateral and bilaterals which have come from a different context and in many cases do not work out in terms of our developing countries. But we have found when we work from the ground, we find better solutions which are more sustainable. And we're looking at sustainability here. So what is the added value? It is called empathy. You don't usually see empathy, energy, and engineering together. But through this design thinking, I'm seeing that is something we can do. Here, I'm looking at designing for people. So engineering will look at designing for people. And in it, it means design thinking part is how do we listen? How do we listen to the people, the community, the industry that we're designing to? And each of those may be very different in terms of how we're going to listen. And this is because we can't refute whether you have good ideas, good innovation, great prototypes and products, minus empathy, it equals results. That is a common understanding. But in this 21st century, we need to find solutions with all that is happening in terms of climate change, technology shifts, limited resources, population growth. We need to really find ways of how can we go about solving our problems and finding solutions. And this needs creative new ideas. And having an attitude that there aren't right or wrong answers. We've been looking at things in the past, but only better or worse ideas, and which began the translation of whatever we're doing. So here we're looking at design thinking. It's about improving through experimentation, but also an empathetic, sensible experimentation. And using the cycle of moving from problem definition to problem solving, back to problem definition. In fact, I should not say back to. It's more like a spiral, because each cycle actually gives more stronger insight to what are the possible solutions to an unexpected situation. So we're shifting away very much from problem solving in a linear sense, which looked at past experience and was more incremental, and looking more into defining a problem from the ground, really listening and understanding it, uncovering real human needs, and going through these needs at different levels, different considerations to come up with solutions, and then with whatever we produce, have the people themselves, the community or the industry try it out. So here we're looking at design thinking starting with people from the beginning. And I'm not sure that's something you do very much in engineering. It's a human ecology approach, in addition to considering environmental needs, which are both physical and natural. So the nature of design thinking, and I'm using the word design thinking, as I said earlier, because design means different things to different people. But design thinking is a certain philosophy which I want to adhere to and use within this context. And design thinking is inclusive. SD Lab Energy is, as I mentioned earlier, Sustainable Design Lab in Energy. And really, when you look at sustainability, it is cross-disciplinary, it's interdisciplinary. We're going to solve today's challenges. In fact, I would say it's transdisciplinary because our challenges are complex. Here we're going to look at design as an iterated process, but I will define design slightly different to explain the transformations that has happened with design and mainly influenced by technology. And here we're looking at design thinking being a people-centered and interactive approach. And overall will be how to apply design thinking to sustainable energy engineering. But first, let's go to Sustainable Development Goals, which were launched this year from 2015 to 2030. I'm just going to highlight 3 areas, but they do have implications. Of course, energy, which is what we're dealing with, and what's been required is to ensure access to reliable, sustainable, modern energy for all, promote sustained, inclusive, sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. But there's also the aspect of well-being that is also one of the goals, to ensure healthy living and promote well-being for all at all ages, as achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. There's another aspect which I'm sure would affect engineering to a large extent, which is infrastructure, to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. All of these, when you look at the social needs, is creating access for people, for all ages, for all. Also appropriate technology that accommodates for all. Will the appropriate technology be the same for a woman, for a man? We can't be so sure because we found that they have different activities and different responsibilities. There's going to be financial services that are there to enable the business aspect of being able to develop these technologies and to have them sustainable, and which includes entrepreneurial opportunities for the communities we'll be dealing with. So sustainable livelihoods will be the sort of the umbrella for all of these. But also we're saying we need to, within that, still enhance the use of enabling technology and promote the empowerment of women and youth. From an engineering solution point of view, we're talking about renewable energy, energy efficiency, affordable, reliable, and modern energy services, as well as modern sustainable energy services. So we're talking about some solutions that are engendered, entrepreneurial design, social entrepreneurship. All of these are part and parcel. So in design thinking, here we'll actually be looking at design tools for people-centered innovation. And here I think the best reference would be to look at D-School Stanford, one of their overall concepts of how innovation is done, which I think summarizes very well the Sustainable Development Goal needs, where we're talking about viability, which is the business sense of whatever is thought through, feasibility, which is the technical sense, desirability, which is the human sense. All of these are required in this process to have innovative solutions to our real-world problems, which in order to these real-world problems actually are a better way of learning, and finding the solutions are actually very encouraging to the learner or the researcher. And these are a much more constructive way than hypothetical ideas and exercises. We cannot solve all problems today with the same thinking we used when we created them. So we need to think of things differently. So going back to design, we have designers, architects, and engineers who do design professionally. But as I said earlier, all people think they're designers. But here I'm using design thinking as a philosophy. Design is also a process, and I'm going to more say an iterative process, which is slightly different from how it was before. It's also a product and a service. In the past, basic design process was not as it is in the design thinking sense, but we do use the process, but have evolved it to be more encompassing. In the past, for marketing purposes and all, we would do observations, the marketing person would do observations, do research, interviews, etc. And then they would be given to possibly a creative director who would do the brainstorming, mind mapping, sketching, storyboards. Then make a product, the prototyping and all, and then finally we do an implementation. The marketing again may find out whether it was for user, it was user-friendly, but there was more of a business sense towards this than actually a human. Engineering design processes have evolved. We're looking at defining the problem, and then we go generate possible solutions, and then possibly go back to define the problem, and then go again, generate solutions, evaluate possible solutions, make and test a model. We're going back and forth, modify and improve the design, back and forth again, communicate final design. This is something that engineering has also evolved in terms of the process. But when we're adding design thinking, we're adding the people-centered aspect towards within engineering, the collaborative way of solving issues and problems. Experimental, yes, it's within engineering, but experimental between people, with the community, and an extended audience and user is something which is quite new. Being optimistic, basically being positive, being intuitive, being passionate about what it is as a group, as an individual. And this, of course, will lead more to innovative and empathetic approaches to finding solutions, and realistic in as far as the effort has been made to find a solution. Applying it to sustainable design engineering lab, the creativity of the individual, you would develop an intuitive sense, the innovation of a team to solve desirable, relevant solutions is something that would be built up. It would enhance project management processes, and we can use an array of methods to inspire and create and innovate at different stages, of which I'm going to show in the next stage. But here, creativity and innovation, I must say, before I show you the different process and the possibilities within it, is that creativity and innovation are not necessarily innocent. So action on a project is important, but reflection on personal discoveries and group discoveries in the process are also important for ethical and moral considerations, so that whatever is being designed is coming from with intent, with good intent and wanting something that it can be a solution for those that you're working with, and that's us included. So here, in looking at the process, design thinking helps with how to empathize, learn about your audience for whom you're designing. And there's many ways you can go about that. There's social science methods. There's a variety of ways. When we define what it is, construct a point of view that is based on the user needs and insights, again, there's a whole lot of methods that can be used there. And that's where the creativity and innovation comes, depending on the context and who you're actually working for. Then there's to ideate, of course, brainstorm and come up with creative solutions. Again, a whole lot of methods can be used again. Prototype, build a representation of one or more of your ideas to show to others. Again, that array of chosen ideas which you'd like to be tested. And then, of course, when you to go back to the user, the community, the industry, and see what they think and get feedback. And also find innovative ways of doing this if there's financial constraints. And of course, we'd have to think of the business aspect that comes into this as we go along with the development. So even though this process may look very simple, there's a lot of other processes within, and that's the iterative process, one that goes back and forth, finding all the different ways that you can actually find a solution. What is the best way to go about it? How do we go about it? Those are the various possible ways that one has to consider. And as I would say, it's an internal journey and a creative journey, and I would really think an exciting journey. And then finally, I would like to summarize that what we're looking at design thinking, we're looking at a methodology of innovation that combines creative and analytical approaches and collaboration across disciplines. So it's really what I would call transdisciplinary. It draws on methods from engineering and design and combines them with ideas and visualization for the arts, tools from the social sciences, and insights from the business world. This is a simulation to resolve real human and environmental issues. Technology can assist with the simulation, but the various considerations need to really keep the human and environment intact. It's a process to learn as a group, as a team, and understand the dynamics of working with people and where they can contribute. It's a process that is personalized, internalized, and applied to one's own challenges. So there's also an individual development. And overall, we could say it's a way of doing things. And